All right, Kraken fans. Jason Botterill starting to show us who he is with his first acquisition, a trade with the Dallas Stars. We get someone who might be my PNV sandpaper guy. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're bringing you your favorite team every single day. Erica L. Ayala here, your host of Locked On Kraken and accredited media member for Milano Cortina 2026, where our very own Philip Grubauer and potentially some other Seattle Kraken players will be competing with their national teams. We've got Oliver Bjorkstrand, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, and Philip Grubauer already named. Who else is to come? We will find out, and I will talk about it here because I will be in Italy covering those folks. You can also catch me on CBS Sports. I was doing a lot of WNBA talk earlier today, and I told you, especially for those who look at the FanDuel odds, don't sleep on the Golden State Valkyries. They took down Indiana. What a game that was. We can talk about that on my other podcasts, but let's get into this news that happened today. Just as I was getting ready for the WNBA slate, Seattle Kraken acquire forward Mason Marchment from Dallas in an exchange for a 2025 fourth round pick and a 2026 third round pick. Here's what our very own Jason Botterill had to say. Mason adds an important skill set to our roster. He's a veteran player who brings a combination of size, skill, and toughness. Mason knows what it takes to win, having been part of deep postseason runs with the Stars. We're excited to have him join our group. Bad news for those of you who are the quote-unquote wrong side of 30 guys. Marchment comes in at 30 years old, tied his career high in goals, 22, and had 47 points, 22 goals, 25 assists, and a plus 15 rating in 62 regular season games with Dallas this past season. Tied the second highest point total of his career despite missing 21 games. I want to talk about that. Due to injury, and set a personal best in game-winning goals 4. Well, we will definitely take game-winning goals. He stands at 6'5", 212 pounds, was named the NHL's second star of the week for the week ending in November 17th, 2024. Has appeared in over 300 career regular season games with Dallas, Florida, and Toronto, recording 76 goals and 89 points, 258 penalty minutes, and a plus 64 rating. He is related to Kennedy Marchment, which is probably my favorite fact because Kennedy Marchment is a gamer. And if there's something running in the Marchment blood, heck yes, I want some P&V. I want some sandpaper. I want some grit on this team. I made a comment on YouTube before I started recording that I'm going to have to retract, but we'll get into YouTube comments. I also want to get into what this means for, of course, the landscape of the Seattle Kraken as they are constructed, or I guess as they were constructed last season. But Marchment, let me know in the comments right now. What do you like about this? What are your concerns about this? I have some comments that I'm going to show later on the show. I listened to what Steve Dangle had to say about this. I've also read a few different articles, including what Kate Shefty wrote. And, I think overall what we're seeing here is Sean Shapiro also read what he had to say over at Slapshots. So, this is a deal for Dallas that helped them free up some cap space. They had a few different players. If you've been keeping up with the NHL rumor mill between Robertson, Duchesne, who they did ink earlier today, there was a lot of conversation on what Dallas was going to do. What Dallas had to do was shed some cap space, and that's what they do here. Mason Marchment, $4.5 million salary, now on the books for the Seattle Kraken, again, for a 2026 third round pick and a 2025, as in this month, fourth round pick, a fourth rounder this year. And so again, if you listen to what Steve Dangle said, or if you read what Sean Shapiro is saying, a good move for both teams. Dallas, if they move Mason at the trade deadline or any time in between that, not at this current time, they're getting a lot more, the third and a fourth round pick for Mason Marchment. They were just in a numbers crunch and had to make some difficult decisions. As far as the Seattle Kraken, they get a guy, and this is where I have to recant what I said. I was like, oh, I'm not sure. I just looked at the numbers real quick. Not sure, if Mason gives us exactly what we need offensively. Let's put it this way. Is he an elite automatic scorer? No. But he, even with his injury, was at a 62 point pace. The only person that was really close to that and has been is our guy McCann. 29 goals. We struggled to get a couple of guys to 20 goals. So we will take that. Is it the, again, true automatic scorer that we need? I mean, comparative to our roster, perhaps. So I like this. I like the promise, the size of this guy. And if he can use that weight, which we hear a lot of folks saying, that he's big man Marchment. I've seen him play. You can also look at some of the data, whether you're looking at some of the heat maps or the NHL Edge data. Now, whether he is high or low in a specific percentile, you definitely can see in these mappings, in these data sets, that he likes being around the net. Net front presence, anybody? I think so. Yes, absolutely. A net front presence, certainly more than what we're getting when we're tossing McCann out there, sometimes a little Capo Caco, Yanni Newman, who's, didn't end the season on the NHL roster, but probably slides in next season. So, and what do we have with Capo and Neiman? More size and also more weight, not just tall, but we are getting some buffer guys. We're a young scrappy team. So getting some more size is really great. We're going to talk about RFAs and UFAs in the next segment, but I just want to break this down for you. Mason Marchment played most of his minutes with Duchesne. They, mixed and matched lines a lot, but even when he was mixing and matching, Marchment Duchesne was 2/3 of one of your top lines if you're Dallas. Mason Marchment plays on the left side, strong side. Okay. On the left, to the left for your Seattle Kraken as of last season, Jaden Schwartz, Ellie Tolvanen, Jared McCann, the aforementioned, and Ty Cartier. Now, remember that name, Ty Cartier. If you're an everydayer or an OGer, first of all, thank you for making Locked On Kraken your first listen, your midday listen, your late night listen. You're part of your daily routine. You know that I've been talking about Cartier. I mentioned it a time or two, and there's a comment that I'm going to read later that alludes to some things that folks are saying about Ty Cartier. I mean, it's either Tolvey or McCann that slides down, right? And Marchment's got to be on one of those top two lines. Maybe everyone slides down. I'm just saying. It's going to be about combinations, chemistry, things of that nature. But with Marchment, where does that, what does that leave us? Or who does that leave us, I should say, on that left side? Coming up on Locked On Kraken, a little bit alluding to that, including Marchment himself, let's talk about just an update on who our RFAs are for this season, RFAs, UFAs, and then that's restricted free agents, unrestricted free agents for the next 2 seasons. And I think that in addition to getting someone who can be more of an offensive threat than what we had last season, the Seattle Kraken also get that in the immediate without being committed to it in the long term. That might be my favorite part of this deal, but let me know in the comments, what do you think about the news? Mason Marchment acquired by the Seattle Kraken for a 3rd round pick in 2026, a 4th round pick in this upcoming draft in 25. Let me know in the comments. Coming up, though, again, we're going to talk about RFAs, UFAs, and then I'm going to get to some of your comments that we had on the most recent videos on Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at Wonderful Pistachio. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller for longer. Listen, I'm in a new office space now. That's right. Headquarters is in a new place, and we have some vending options. And to my delight, Wonderful Pistachios is one of them. That's because it's a great on-the-go snack. And again, it's something that's going to keep you feeling fuller for longer so that I'm not doing some of the empty calorie snacking that I often do, especially watching games late night, getting things ready for the next day. And I love this. It is the shelled variety that I have here at the office space, but you can also go no shell if that's your vibe. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. And I talked about wanting to beef up the Seattle Kraken. Well, protein's the way you do it. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Hey, thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. We enjoy our everydayers, our OGers, our kind of fly in and outers. Either way, if you clicked on this to hear it, to listen to it, to watch it, you're cool. You're good with me. And thank you for those who comment. I'll get to some of your comments later on today's show. Always want to encourage that engagement. And also you can join our our texting community if you want to text me directly. Especially love when I get some women's hockey messages. We got some things to break down when it comes to PWHL Seattle. We'll continue to do that as we get closer to that entry draft as well. RFAs and UFAs. Why did I want to go there? Well, because our newest member of the Seattle Kraken falls into that category as an unrestricted free agent in the coming season. So, that's what I was alluding to at the end of the last segment. Not only does this not, cost us anything significant, we run the course of the Marchment contract, which we can do with our salary cap. But now you get a little bit of a tryout. It's almost like a tryout for everyone with like the best odds possible. Marchment comes over here to the Seattle Kraken. He gets to finish out a contract where he started with Dallas. If it doesn't work out with Seattle one way or another, he's a UFA. If it does work out with Seattle, he's still a UFA. However, the Seattle Kraken have this year to maybe figure some things out, and if he has a future with the organization. Now, for those of you who really like our roster, especially on the left side, strong side, what does this mean for some other players? What does it mean for Ty Cartier? Again, we'll talk about him throughout all 3 segments, really. What does it mean for Jared McCann? Ellie Tolvanen, who could be someone on this left side that gets left out. Jaden Schwartz, you know how I feel about Jaden. Leave my Jaden alone. I also think this creates baked-in competition from guys who, again, coming up, RFAs, UFAs. Let's talk about the ones currently. So let's talk about the RFAs and the UFAs for the next 2 seasons. 2025, you have Mikey Isiman, who we've talked about before, UFA, unrestricted free agent. You have Capo Caco, who we talked about on yesterday's episode, RFA, restricted free agent. Ty Cartier, RFA, restricted free agent. Riker Evans, RFA, restricted free agent. Okay? So you got 3 RFAs and a UFA that you got to handle. Got to figure out what you're going to do there. And we have to do that, once we open things up here in July. When it comes to the next season, so after Lane Lambert's first season, will it be his final? I guess we'll find out. 2026-27, no RFAs, no restricted free agents. You have, though, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could have just counted on my page. I don't know why I had to look at anyway. You have 6. I'm going to write that down so I know that it's 6. Including Jaden Schwartz, Jordan Eberle, our captain, Mason Marchment, who we just traded for, Ellie Tolvanen, Capo Caco, Jamie Alexiak. So, being a little bit nimble, being a little bit lean now, using some of those prospects, using some of the draft picks that we have is pretty. I'm liking it. It's pretty smart. This doesn't tell me necessarily, nor do I think when I look at our RFAs and our UFAs, nor do I think that we have to be a particularly committed hockey team. We're throwing spaghetti on the wall. We've got a new head coach, a new general manager, effectively a new president. It's getting me a little bit more excited about the potential here. I still don't know, and we've talked about this in the comments on YouTube. Is this a team that's perennial playoff? I think we've gotten. I'm going to keep saying perennial playoff team, so I just know that's one of the themes that we're going to talk about a lot here. Are we a perennial playoff team? We don't know yet. My gut is leaning towards no. Can we aim to build a solid foundation to be a perennial playoff team in the future? Well, absolutely. And here's the thing about that word perennial. We won't know until we get to the playoffs again. Can this team make the playoffs again? Maybe. But the foibles and follies of last season, do they still exist? Including, if you go watch the Steve Dangle video on the Marchment trade, he rants an epic rip 'em a new one rant when it comes to what the Seattle Kraken are doing, what their needs are. Offense, yes, that's handled perhaps in this trade. But what do you think the other thing is that Steve Dangle said? Just, take a wild guess. Take a guess what he said. Do you have it? Did you type it in the comments? Goaltending. Philip Grubauer. Seems like he got the he's my guy treatment. No buyout that we know of. Can he be a better version of Philip Grubauer than he was last year? Well, here's hoping so, including for Team Germany, right? I mean, am I right? He's got to be. There's no way. Will he get the reps that he feels he needs to be successful? To be determined. But what we do know, perhaps another Easter egg, is that the goaltending coach that helped Philip Grubauer reset, retool, whatever we want to call it, is now with the Seattle Kraken. Came up from Coachella Valley. RFAs, UFAs, including Marchment, going to be very interesting. And we're going to keep a keen eye on this because what's happening, not particularly just this offseason, the trades that may be happening in season, definitely at the deadline, are going to start telling us what Jason Botterill can really do. And, is he a liability? Is he a detriment to the organization? I guess we just won't know. Now, will we? Coming up on Locked On Kraken, let's hear from you. I have 3 different comments that I want to read or discuss. There's 2 that I'm going to show on the screen. The other one, I would have had to chop it up and it's just, at least the way that I did it this time. Next time I'll be more mindful. We can do something different. But let's read some of the comments that I've gotten on the last video. Who's quote unquote detrimental to the Seattle Kraken? And does that also open up space maybe to keep an Asimon, to keep a Marchment down the road, to get rid of Philip Grubauer? I don't know. We'll talk about that, though, coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Once again, it's Erica L. Ayala here, still getting headquarters set up. You can see that over here, I've got my Beijing 2022, right? That was 2022 flags here, Beijing, China. Then that's my Paris 2024, one of the recycling cups. I also have some of the pins here. I love pins. I truly, truly do. This is actually the Paris 2024 Paralympic mascot. I forget the names of the mascots. If you know, put it in the chat. Does it say it on here? This is in French, which is funny because I'm actually wearing my Everyone Watches Women's Sports shirt. That is the French translation. And then, speed skating. Speed skating. I got to very briefly visit speed skating at Beijing 2022, but it was a lot of fun. All right. Anyway, enough about that. Let's get to regarder. I'm still working on it. Let's get to some of your comments. Talked yesterday. Should we keep Capo Caco? Should he stay? There was a very strange list of players that are quote unquote detrimental to the Seattle Kraken. And I asked you what you thought. And some of the comments were really interesting. But speaking of interesting, let's start with a comment that actually came in on yesterday's video about today's news. This is from Stubby486 Marchment. This will be interesting. Indeed, it will. Stubby dooby doo. I don't know where that came from, but I'm just going to go with it. A little Frank Sinatra, I think. Strangers in the night. Are those the lyrics? I don't even know. It's late for me, folks. Who knows? I think this will be interesting. What's also going to be interesting is if Marchment can keep the pace that he had, even when away with some injury last season. That's going to be interesting. What's even more interesting to me, Stooby Dooby Doo? I know that's not, I'm sorry. I shouldn't give you a nickname. I should ask for permission. Stooby486. Like I've said about McCann, who's the only one in striking distance to his point total, Marchment's that is, from last season. How do we build a line that's going to empower Marchment to be at least as successful as he was last season? Left side, we have an overhaul here, including the aforementioned McCann. We'll have to see. Mentioned Ty Cartier. A comment from YouTube, not going to read. Willie Hockey 10. Agree with Stevenson on the aforementioned list based on last season, but hopefully does better next season. I think Montour lived up to his contract. You and I agree there. I am expecting Grubauer to be better under Lambert. And then this got cut off, but I will read it for you. I was surprised that Cartier or Carts wasn't on the list. Another podcast wants Kraken to let him go. I want to see Maddie with Kako and Yanni Newman. It is very likely that Newman comes in and that makes either Isimon or Cartier or maybe both of them the odd man out. I do like the promise of Ty Cartier. There was a lot of talk when he was able to come and play in the NHL that the development, he's a success story from our development pipeline, which of course included at the time Dan Bilesma, our former head coach, and Jessica Campbell, who is on this Seattle Kraken coaching staff. It stalled out. The Mario Cartier stalled out a little bit here. He was one of those players that needed a reset, right? So I understand why you don't maybe why folks are saying it's time for him to go. It made no sense that Cartier, some other people saying Burakovsky, Chandler Stevenson were not on that list. I think we are all in agreement. Speaking of, this is what Striatic had to say. Not buying out Gru is a signal the team may be in a hurry to win, but probably more the season after next. And I think that comment, the reason I wanted to read that comment is because it kind of fits into my analysis of this Marchment deal, right? It's like we want to be more competitive than we were last year in this next season. That's in theory not that hard to do, but also it's going to be difficult for Botterill because of how poorly things seemed to connect, if at all, last year. So that's the big thing. Be better the next year. I feel like that is the main and hopefully most tangible goal for next year. But I agree with Striatic. This is probably looking like it's a couple of years. You know it's going to take a couple of years, so why kind of waste that buyout money and then even more to try and find a goaltender? Hopefully it doesn't get worse, because if it does, then I don't think you can hold on to this guy. I hopefully Gru plays well, but not expecting much out of him next season or from the Kraken overall. Way harsh, Ty. Striatic goes on to say, which is why I didn't put even that comment on the screen. It's a lot, but I love it. Lambert, disagree, as in he's detrimental. Not that I'm a huge fan, but he's fireable at any point. So how detrimental could he be? Touche. Ron Francis, is he detrimental? Disagree with that. I wasn't sure this would happen, but Botterill actually does seem to be steering the ship. I think today is proof positive with this Mason Marchment signing. Personnel-wise, not Francis. So this is interesting. Is Ron Francis far enough removed for there to be some hope that things will move in a different direction? Again, I don't think Ron Francis did everything wrong. Thought he did some amazing things. It just, as he told us, it's hard to be the first GM. Everyone wants to be the second GM. That's a cute saying. It truly is. And yes, Jason Botterill will benefit from the foundation that, quite honestly, he helped to lay and to build. But there's still some runners left on base that now Jason has to clean up. He has to strike out the side, retire the side, I should say. Well, I guess you could strike him out too. He's got to retire the side. There's controversy, though. What does retire the side in baseball actually mean? Does that mean that you struck out the side? Which I guess I'm kind of telling you what I think my answer is. If you retire the side, that means that you got the guys out, right? You got all three players out. Striking out the side means that you struck out all three of them to then retire the side. Okay, no? Do you agree? Apparently, it's a bit controversial. I could kind of understand why it is. I can kind of understand why it's have I said this before on the? I feel like maybe 2 or 3 years ago I talked about this randomly. Striking out the side, striking out, retiring the side. We might have to revisit this. Maybe I'll ask Ty. He talks baseball, Mariners baseball all the time. I watch a lot of baseball. I have watched a lot of baseball. I don't watch as much these days. Anyway, not the point. Other comments. We're moving on to other comments. Striatic. Disagree strongly that Shane Wright is detrimental. Yeah, that was ridiculous. Yeah, I knew it was for clicks, but it's also good. It's good commentary. Like, I just want to make sure I'm not the crazy one in this situation. Other situations, I probably am. Disagree strongly that he's detrimental. I agree strongly with your disagreement, Striatic. I also think that I'm not in the camp that thinks we're holding Shane Wright back. I'm not in that camp. I do know some people think Chandler Stevenson might be blocking Shane. And I do think as long as Chandler Stevenson is on this team and he's getting paid what he is, it's a choice. You could definitely do it. I guess it just makes you wonder then, why did you sign the contract in the first place? You see what I mean about players on base? Anyway, I digress. Montour disagree weekly. Disagree that he is detrimental. Weekly disagree. Interesting. And then, as we have alluded to in other Striatic comments, Grubauer agree, but he'll be gone soon and is a backup. I'm in a rebuild. The cap space he's using isn't vital. Fair. And you were spot on what you talked about, because the original comment was, it was the Grubauer. So the original comment was on the Grubauer making Team Germany about is the team not buying Gru out as a signal that we're not expecting to win immediately. Like, ASAP doesn't mean this 2025-26 season. I think we all kind of knew that, but I just was like, the language we're using is not all the same. What's going on? But yeah. Great comments as always. There's some other ones that we might get to down the road. And as we close out this week, we're going to talk about, again, just what the roster looks like here. And then we got to start getting ready for the draft. We're like a week and some change away from that. What are the Seattle Kraken going to do? Do you think they'll make some moves to maybe jump around when it comes to the draft order, or get some things done? They don't have to travel. There'll be a war room, so to speak, in Seattle. So yeah, very interesting stuff. Very intrigued to see how it all goes down. We will be here to talk about it. Be kind to yourselves. Be kind to one another. Let's hold fast. Let's stay true and loud and proud. Always we say, let's go Kraken. Erica L. Ayala, thanking you so much for listening to another episode of Locked On Kraken. I will catch you on the next episode. Until then, peace out, everybody.